It was a long time ago, but you should hear reports of it. A very long time ago. I had a standing fleet. I think I might have started out with 124 or 140 ships, but quickly over time, I got up to about 700 ships and even 1,400, I think. And I think I might have had a grand total of 2,400 ships at one point in time. But some of my things that I did were truly epic um, extravaganza things. Um, there'd be a disaster in a town, and I would order 120 ships to that town, or I'd order 700 ships to a town to assist in the relief effort. One eyewitness account, I believe, stated that they looked from horizon to horizon, and there was nothing but ships as far as the eye could see. And I think it might have been one of the times when I hit one of the disasters hard with like 700 ships or 1,400 ships. There was a couple big disasters where something really bad had happened, and so I literally just ordered 1,200 ships into a bay, and it filled the bay or filled the whole skyline. Basically, they said. Um, my fleets in recent years have downsized quite a bit because of airplanes, but back in days of old, I had truly massive fleets. 1,000 ships was nothing. 1,000 ships was one day's work. For me, it worked out because I had these ships anyway, and these ships would be doing trade and stuff. And so they would just be doing their trade routes and making money that way. And then, but during disasters, I would order the ships to go and assist with the disaster. And for me, it really didn't really matter that much because I mean, it's just like a week or 2 weeks worth of loss of money. So what? The world can wait for 2 weeks for disaster aid. So I would order 700 ships or 600 ships or 300 ships to a disaster, whatever I could spare, really. But you should hear accounts of this, of people saying they didn't know where or how the ships had come to their bay, but they were glad that the ships were there, and those were my ships. I would even put out a call to local towns like New York, asking for carpenters or whatever, and I would hire carpenters and the carpenters would be taken to a town, and they would rebuild the town, basically, just like that. Um, I really enjoyed it, actually, honestly. But in days of old, because I had been such a great inventor and because I had done so much, I could order around 600 ships or 1,200 ships. I'm pretty sure I ordered like 1,200 ships one time into a bay. Um, it's only and then recent more modern years, I just order like 36 ships, but 36 ships of modern day era can do a lot more than those old ships. It took a lot to be able to move stones onto a beach. Like sometimes they would even build piers, I think, just for offloading supplies to rebuild a town, basically. Um, I did some truly epic things. And you might hear reports or accounts of these things in logbooks somewhere, or some sort of ship's log or town record about how the ships showed up. And I can remember one account of that, at least. And I think I did at least 3 times where I ordered 600 ships or 300 ships. When you talk about the East India Trading Company or the Dutch Company, you in the movies you hear about it's just good business. It's blah 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 blah, and they don't even understand. No, what I did was I showed what money could really do, what you could really do with power, and that is really be an epic force. The kinds of things that Bill Gates and other rich inventors just don't even think about. I mean, nobody does this anymore. Like they talk about the president. I was the world president, and I had at least 250,000 or 2,500 ships at my command at one point in time, and I could just order them, and I did. Relief efforts, disaster aid, building towns, doing all kinds of things. I had a standing fleet of 700 ships, big ships too. At least 120 feet long or so. I forget exactly what size they were, but there was a lot of ships. Like I said, um, it was actually kind of fun and cool to hear about how people remembered my ships. How they would say that there was just masts, square riggers, from horizon to horizon. And that was me. Those were my ships, my fleet. And it was because I had so many because of all my trade routes and all my companies, all my factories. I could order stone from my shale pit to go rebuild a town, and we did. They did a lot, and I paid them. Paid them happily because in the end I was building a town and upping production worldwide. You know, it was really just a nice effort on my part. But you might hear these accounts in China, you might hear these accounts in all around the world in different towns. The account of the ships that would be ordered. And, later on with the American government, I still ordered ships around and still hit disaster areas pretty hard. But back in the day, epic was the only way to describe what I did. And yeah, it felt that good. I don't think Bill Gates ever, you can't even feel that good from sleeping with a hot girl. The kind of things that I did were like, I loved it. I did. I love being an inventor, and I especially love being able to order so many ships around. But people loved me. Everyone loved me. I was the greatest person in the whole world. I mean, I was the one that after a storm, there's probably a ship coming to get you or to rebuild your town, or a whole bunch of ships. I would usually, I think I would usually offer up like 120 or 300 ships to go help out a town, or to send 3 ships off. I could afford it. It wasn't a big deal. In the old days, people really didn't need a government. They just needed to work, at their own pace, because they knew I was out there. I was always listening, always working. I had their back every single day, and my massive fleets. And they had money and they traded and they did things, but when I asked, my ships moved, and everyone knew where they were going. They're going to do something great, save a town, provide relief. Anyway, it was wonderful and glorious. It's kind of frustrating how it's all been lost. You can go back 7 generations and see video on a city for 7 generations, at least 8 or 9 actually. But it's something I know because I lived through it. I was that person or that entity, and it inspired the whole world, changed the whole world. Anyway, it's past history record now. It's in the past, but I did that. And you can read about it maybe somewhere. Dig it up. Look for it. You'll see it. I know it's there. I saw it myself. But I was that person. When I die, oh well. Still got to do it. And I still got to tell people who said, there's not enough money, to go shove it up there, you know what. Like I said, I used to order around 1,200 ships. 700 ships. Nobody ever told me that there wasn't enough money. That wasn't even in people's vocabulary before. My Spartans were awesome. They rebuilt a lot of towns. Anyway, nowadays we get into the future and to the present, and people are like, I don't know. It's not the same. But if you ever want to do a little research and find out some cool stuff, you can look it up. There might be some recount somewhere about it. I don't know. I know I've seen them, but anyway, makes what I've done with American government seem trite because, like I said, 1,200 ships or more. Hey, modern day landing craft and stuff, I used it and it worked really well. Amphibious stuff for floods. I had a standing army. I had a standing. I always had a standing army, all the way through Rome. Last 5,000 years, I basically had a standing army. Every report of disaster, every report of problems, they would just do what they knew I would do. They knew I would send in 120 ships, so 120 ships would go in and provide aid. It wasn't about raping or pillaging or anything. There were fires, but mostly it was about rebuilding. That's all we did. Anyway, the 1,100 people, the 1,200 people, 700 people, year 700, I mean, that's what we did. It's just kind of frustrating to see all this, like, ridiculous, like, silly stuff, when I lived it. I know how I changed the world. I know how I created Lloyd's of London and all these other groups, which are more recently, and it's like, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, I was a king and the greatest king of all. The most amazing.